Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming out today for our honors talk for FUGAZI and for Rashad Malik Davis. I hope you all have time to take in the work, get some in-depth questions to ask them. I know they're eager to answer all your questions, so I'm going to turn it over to them. They're going to briefly talk about their exhibitions, and then we'll do a Q&A once they're done. All right? So I'll turn it over to Rashad and to FUGAZI.
Awesome. All right, okay. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so excited to be able to chat with you all. Just very briefly so I can let FUGAZI go. I am Rashad Malik Davis, and my exhibition is Celestial Bodies, as you know. So the work is really about it's a culmination of all of the things that have been meaningful to me. So I studied anthropology in college and was very fascinated with history and culture and why people do the things that they do. I was a cultural anthropology major. And one of the questions that plagued me was, why did queerness exist? One of the things that we learned was that DNA essentially gets phased out of the gene pool if there's no use for it. And so the fact that queer people existed meant that there was a genetic reason for our existence. And very long story short, there was a group of people in the Polynesian islands who researchers found that queer people were accepted, and they found that basically queer people were super aunts and super uncles, providing resources to the community without taking anything away. And that's where I kind of got a sense of my own purpose and where my purpose lay in terms of helping the community, in terms of being communal, in terms of supporting others and myself, right? And then it culminated in my interest in African history. So it started with Nile Valley civilization, so like Nubia, Kush, Kemet, Ethiopia, all those things. And I realized that we were there. And so I dug deeper and found that not only were we there, we were held as sacred, important, and were essential parts of the community who didn't just exist, but were celebrated. And so this exhibition speaks to that. And I really wanted to put that on display, you know, as we deal with what we're dealing with, as we deal with fascism, quite frankly. We are dealing with attacks on vulnerable communities, and this is my resistance art. This is my way to say that not only do we exist, but that we're going to exist despite efforts to make us silent, to make us disappear, because we won't. We are an essential part of the human narrative, and this exhibition is talking about that. So that's a bit about my work.
Yep. So my exhibition is self-titled FUGAZI. I feel like the main focus of it comes down to perspective, because we all occupy different bodies, you know? Like, even everyone sitting here is looking at me from a different perspective, you know? And I feel like now more than ever, I guess the divide in between us is more clear, you know? And I feel like when it comes to understanding who we are, you have to understand yourself first. And this work here, all of it is kind of like a representation of parts of my life that I've been through, you know? Lessons that I find important to me in my own spiritual journey. And I feel like, once again, by being able to understand yourself, you can look at yourself in other people, you know, as a reflection. And I feel like that's what's needed now. You know, that's what's important to me, is to be able to look at somebody and not see them as just like another body, but as another version of myself, you know? And one of the major things that I find to be the most important whenever I put something together, especially like this show, I just found myself like thinking about how can I connect with somebody else, you know? Because I'm not the best at speaking, so I feel like that's why I rely so much on my art. But I wanted to make something that you can have a conversation with, that you can really sit with, and you can really sit there and piece together, you know? Because even though you're interacting with the art, you're having a conversation with yourself, you know, and how you're processing things. And I feel like that's one of the most important things I can do as an artist. And to me, creating art is probably one of the most sacred practices you can have. You know, one of the most sacred practices there is. When you look around, like all we do is create. You know, and that also goes to another one of my major themes in this was balance. So, a lot of my work features allusions to like yin and yang, darkness and light, creation and destruction, because you can't create something without destroying what was. You know, and once again, I feel like that goes down to becoming aware of yourself, because I feel like we all have the capacity to do good but also do bad, you know? And I feel like leaning too much to one side and trying to associate yourself with one thing, you're not seeing the full picture, you know? Because I feel like we're so quick to not categorize ourselves, but to, you know, compartmentalize like, I guess, the actions and the people, you know? It's always like them and us, or me and you. So I might not agree with what you do, or you might not agree with what I do, or I might agree with what you do. And then through that, we associate and we band together. But I feel like it's the understanding that can cause us to bridge those gaps. And I feel like as a society and as a people, if we really do want to progress further and I'm sorry, my mind is moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour. But I feel like if we really want to progress further and really allow ourselves to grow, not only as individuals, but as people, that we have to start looking at other people as a part of ourselves and as an extension of ourselves. So I feel like by putting this body of work together, I'm putting myself in a vulnerable place. And I hope that through that, you can begin to look at yourself as well through my vulnerability. So I feel like that's one of the main components of my exhibition, and that's also why it's so titled. So that's a little rundown of that. Now, I guess to talk about specific pieces,
Can you speak a little louder?
a little bit louder.
Yes, please.
Sorry, but I guess to talk about individual pieces now. I feel like the basis for everything in this room started with that drawing back there. I don't know, you guys can turn around. But the one with the white frame. So I created that when I was around like 18 or 19. That's when I first put like the pencil to the page. But I feel like that's kind of like the introduction to everything else that's in the room. And with that piece, I really just wanted to really do a deep dive into, I guess, theology and religion, and really just the world. So like everything that encompasses what I'm experiencing when I wake up every day, you know, because I feel like it's one thing to see, but it's another thing to understand. Because if you don't have that understanding, then how much are you really seeing, you know? So I feel like with that kind of opened up the door to everything else that's in this room. And even with that, the main premise of it is yin and yang. So you have, I guess you can say, God's creation walking into man's creation. Both of those things are linked in their reflections of each other. And I feel like being an artist, I feel like having the ability to create is a reflection of God, you know? So it's what we do with that gift that allows us to bring positivity or bring negativity into the world. So that's what that piece focuses on. And then from there, like I said, it kind of spiraled out. But that was the main, like, I guess, catalyst for me finding my creative vision and my creative voice. And that came with a lot of research. That came with a lot of, I guess, putting myself to the side and my own thoughts and opinions, and really just trying to be open-minded to the way how everyone else thinks, the way how everyone else can interpret everything. And I feel like that's a beautiful thing, because now when I look at other people, I don't look at them as like I'm trying to figure out the words, I'm sorry. But I look at them as a mind. And this is what I was saying when it comes down to understanding what you're seeing. Because you may look at somebody and you might see the body. You know, we might know that, okay, we have our heart here, we have our lungs, we have our legs, you know, we have everything that makes that up. And we have a mind, but how many people really understand what the mind is, you know? So with that being said, I feel like being able to understand your mind is the key to understanding everything else. And I feel like my art has allowed me to do that in a way that not so many other things could, you know, because every single time I put my pencil to the page, I'm exploring what's in here. I'm exploring my subconscious. And I'm bringing things out that I probably never would have thought about in any other case, you know? And I kind of just allow myself to give into that freedom, you know, and to really express myself, you know, and I try to tap into that rawness and that realness, and I try not to shy away from it. And I feel like that kind of speaks through my work. It's just because I'm not making it for any other reason except to make it. A lot of these drawings sat in my room for years. I might make it, but there was times where I didn't have space. Like I wouldn't have space to have that frame up somewhere, so I would just have it rolled up. So once it was done, it'd probably be up for like 2 days, and I'd roll it up, and I wouldn't look at it again. A lot of the art in here, actually, this is like the first time I've ever seen it all together at one time. Like normally it's probably just one drawing up and then everything else is just put away. And then once that's done, that gets put away and then I move on to the next thing. So I feel like for me also to have this experience of seeing everything in one room and everything come together, just because I've focused on so many individual components, is also one of those things to where I feel like I'm also seeing myself, you know? Because even though I'm the artist and I sat there and I made these things, like, it's an entirely different experience to sit back and look at it as a viewer, you know, as an observer. And one of the things that people were telling me is like, oh, I can keep looking at this and I can keep finding newer things. I'm the same way. When I was looking at stuff, I forgot I might have put that in there, you know? But I feel like, but that's the beauty of it. And that's one of the main things that still gotta be, like, at least viewing this, not as an artist, but just like, and it's kind of weird to say this, but just as a person, even though I'm the person that created it, like, I can still sit back and I can detach myself from the creative process and I can just look at it, you know? And I hope that when other people view my art, they can also do that same thing, you know? Kind of break away from what you, I guess, what your opinions are and whatever ideals you may have, and look at it with an open mind, you know? Because I feel like when you go into things with an open mind, you allow yourself to gather information that you otherwise may have blocked out or not been as receptive to. And that's really my creative process. It's just trying to allow myself to be as receptive to things as I can be, you know? And I feel like it really just, it culminated in everything. And that's why majority of the time when I'm drawing something, I don't go with a sketch. Like I might sketch it out here, but once it's done, I go to the page and then I just kind of let my mind work and do the work for me. And it comes down to, I guess, it comes down to having kind of like that library, you know, because like once it's up here, it's gonna stay up here, you know, whether you acknowledge it or not. And whether it's experiences that we have or different things that we learn, it's always up here, you know. Like the mind never forgets. It might seem like it, but really, I feel like we kind of allow ourselves to kind of fall into like a cognitive dissonance kind of thing where, you know, we're not really we're not really acting upon what we stuff back into our subconscious. And I feel like we do shove a lot of stuff back there. But that's kind of like our greatest tool, you know. So to me, I always just try to sit there and let things freely flow, and surprises me too. Like, you know, like, I feel like as artists, we'll always surprise ourselves with what we make. And I guess this show here, looking back on it, I don't think I ever would have expected myself to be here. So it definitely is a surprise to me. And I feel like this was definitely a culmination of everything that I've worked towards, and to finally be able to sit here and be like, yeah, like, I put it together, you know, I made it happen. It's a gratifying feeling, and to have everyone in this room be able to view it and appreciate it and share their thoughts and opinions on it, that's something that I would never think I would have the ability to experience. So with that being said, I just want to thank y'all for listening to me talk.
Through the process of research, so much of me came out, and so there was so much that I was learning about myself. So the first piece that I actually created for this was the two gentlemen holding each other to the left there. So that is a piece detailing two ancient Egyptian men who were the manicurists to the pharaoh. And I love, it's stereotypical, but I love to joke that the gays were doing nails even back then, and it makes me very happy. You know, I loved it, and I loved the fact that it was, so essentially the history of it was that these two men were buried in a way that suggested that they were lovers. Typically when people were buried, they were buried with their spouses, and they'd be facing each other and holding hands and shown in a more intimate way. And it was interesting because these two men actually did have wives and children, but it was recognized that they were also partners, that they were also lovers. And this was commissioned by the pharaoh. And to put it into a more full context, these tombs were incredibly expensive, and for it to be commissioned by the pharaoh meant that these were two men who meant a lot to him and who he cared enough about in order to entomb them in this way. And he knew that they wanted to be buried in that way. And on their inscription, on their tombstone, it said in hieroglyphics, "Together in life, together in death." And that was really powerful for me because for a couple reasons, I realized that I hadn't seen very many depictions in a popular way of two men being intimate with each other. And it was interesting because as I was designing the piece, I became uncomfortable. And what I was excavating was my own discomfort with queerness, my own internalized bias, where I said, oh my God, I'm uncomfortable seeing two men be intimate. Why? I do this on a regular basis with my partner. Why is the public, exhibition of queerness and queer romance so uncomfortable for me? So that was startling to me, was to discover that I had my own internalized biases as well. And I think through the rest of these pieces, I became empowered. It became a much more internal kind of process because I started to see that I had a place in history and that I have a clear historical record of people like me being valued. So much of the rhetoric, from within and without the community is that Black queer people are not normal, and that there's something that needs to be fixed, that there's something that is wrong about that identity. And so this whole exhibition and the process of doing it and the process of bringing these people back to life, has been incredibly healing. And I think the most healing pieces for me were doing the wood masks. I chose the wood because wood is a living thing. And I wanted to, bring those ancestors back to life. So all those ancestor masks are me embodying the spirit of this person. And so putting their faces on living wood and bringing them back to life in a way that honored the way that Africans, Black people, in an indigenous way honored our ancestors, and connected with the spirit world, was very healing for me, because it was like I was saying thank you for your existence. Thank you for everything that you provided while you were here on Earth. And so I think the whole process of creating this exhibition was internal, even though the genesis of it was very external, because I wanted to look at the world around me and the history. But the whole process made me realize that what I was doing was important, and the people who I was representing were important as well.
My first question is for you, Rashad.
Uh-huh.
The past few years, you've been doing work with your computer more tech-oriented.
Yes, yes.
And you've switched back to a more traditional way of painting. Can you talk about that switch for yourself, as well as this new work is very powerful, and have you thought about the pushback that we as artists, when we speak about touchy things, and especially in the time that we're in, and to find a unique space like Artworks that will show it. So can you address those?
Oh, that's deep. Well, can you, okay,
The
so.
first one is switch from tech to
Yes.
back to tradition.
Thank you. So, so first of all, Miss Sabri was my first art teacher in a lot of ways. Who got me excited about art, so. Always have to shout you out. But yeah, the transition from traditional to digital back to traditional has been really cool. So I started doing digital art when I was 13. My mom got me right in the middle. She's been my biggest supporter since the start, and got me. I said, "Ma, I want to try and draw traditionally," and she was like, "Okay." And then got me a free version of Photoshop from a friend of hers, which was amazing, back in like '98 or '99. And then I said, "Ma, can I get a tablet?" She was like, "Sure," and got me a tablet. You know, so I've been focused pretty heavily on the digital arena for several decades. So the transition back into traditional media has been jarring, but it's been so healing in a lot of ways. Moving back to traditional, first of all, there's no undo button. I can't double tap and go back, which sometimes I'll forget. But there's something about traditional media that makes me feel more alive, and I don't know how to describe it. I don't know, how to quantify it, but there's something about putting something on a page that's permanent and realizing that it feels more like I'm in conversation with the piece than I do with digital. Digital, I can just say, "Oh, I didn't like that," and then go back. But there's something about putting a mark on a page, and feeling the paper beneath you, feeling the canvas beneath you, that makes you feel so much more emotionally and spiritually connected to the work, at least for me. And then to the question of what it's like to receive pushback in the era that we're in, I think about this all the time, and quite frankly, I get afraid. Being a Black and queer person means that my body is under constant scrutiny, whether or not it's from externally or internally. It means that the fullness of my truth is going to upset somebody, and I recognize that there's always the cost to that, but I also realize that I come from a people who have used art as resistance since we got here. I went to, what was it? It was the African American Museum in DC, and it always gets me emotional because I think about there was a quilted piece of work that a mother had created for her child who she knew she would never see again. And, I realized that the work that I'm doing is a continuation of that. It's me being in dialogue with my community, with myself, and with those ancestors who survived hell. And so, you know, I think about that, and it gives me the courage to create and to continue creating, because I'm like, if you could survive the things that you went through, there's no reason why I, in the abundance of privileges that I have, not create. There's something empowering about knowing that they could survive that, and that I'm here now because of them, and I'm doing a similar work. And so, yeah, I think about the danger of being a publicly queer artist, a publicly Black artist all the time, but I don't have the right to not create.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Hear me breathe. Thank you.
FUGAZI. I spent a lot of time looking at your work and I really, really love it. But there, can you talk about one, you call yourself a self-taught artist. So does that mean that you did not have formal training in an arts facility or art teacher? Okay.
No.
But I see in looking at your work evidence of hours of study of the masters. It's clear that you have studied some of the masters, some way, somehow. And I want to know, and you do studies like the masters, and you have a verbal frame that comes with your work. Do you create this verbal frame as you are working on getting to the final piece? Talk about your process for me, because there's so many levels, because the writing is profound, the drawing is profound, the use of the materials, and that element of just talk to me, please.
I feel like my creative process, for the most part, like I was kind of saying when I was talking earlier, I feel like I might sketch something out, but it'll kind of come to me as like a blur, you know. Just like the concept itself, like I might see the final piece, but everything is blurry. I don't know, like that's the best way I can describe it. So when I sketch something out, it's just to put that idea on the page. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll probably sketch it out again and kind of like, I guess, try to realize it further before I take it to like a large scale. And then once I finally take it to a large scale, I'll draw it how I sketched it out. But once I start putting like all the details and everything together, I'll just let the work speak to me. So I feel like the majority of the writings they're about like a piece that's in this room. That's a writing that I put down after it was completed, because I feel like that's the artwork talking to me. Because like I was saying, sometimes like when I look at what I made, I might forget I put that in there.
Well, you guys are like 10 years apart or more. So the generational differences, but you both brought a spiritual experience to your art, right? And it feels like you're more anthropological. I can't even say the word right. You know what I mean? Right. From an say the word.
Anthropological.
Thank you. Point of view, looking back, right?
Right.
But then his art is like the manifestation of what has already transpired and where it could head. Right? And when I met you that day, I was like, okay, where did you get all this? He was like, well, it comes to me. I was like, no. I said, it's more than that. But what I feel like you're describing, because I read tarot, right? So sometimes when I give a reading, a client will come back to me and say, remember when you said da-da-da-da-da? And I'm like, no, I don't remember any of that. Well, that came true, or this happened, and that happened. And it sounds like your process is almost the same in that you don't know how it gets there, but it manifests, through you,
Yeah.
right? So I pray for both of y'all to never lose that because to overthink. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the right way. Because everything I see from yours to his invokes something, right? I've seen art before, it didn't invoke anything. But this experience being so unique, and I think Artworks, Link, everybody, Nas for putting this together because you know, I just want to say I appreciate both of y'all, your experiences, your methods, you being here today, and me having the opportunity to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I second and echo everything Sis said, and I spent and will spend more hours in both of these exhibitions. I just wanted to say it's less of a question and more of a thank you for your offerings here, because true indeed, right? Like, we're talking about some ancestral things that were trying to suffocate queer bodies and people and places, and the mere existence of that validates and just the staying power of those places, people, our ancestors. So to have that here, just a whole thank you.
Thank you.
Like I hate that I missed the opening, but there's no way I'm gonna miss this.
Thank you.
Is it Fugazi or Fugazi?
Fugazi, you can say either way.
Fugazi, man. So I can't afford it right now, but I'm gonna put it, put it on layaway if you want. It was the right kind of, I walked in here and I was like, it was the right kind of envy, right? Like, oh my God. Finally, an artist can speak like a language that, this is how my mind wants to spill on a paper, and you did it in every single piece, my God. And I'm just so thankful that, you know, Addison's eye was able to put these things together and have in these spaces like what you just mentioned. Thank you.
Yes.
This is incredible. This makes me like, I don't know if y'all from Trenton.
Yeah.
And I hate that I don't know that. I didn't know the work in here in the studio.
It has to steal from the environment. It's a leech. Like, it literally has to poison our communities in order to exist. There are data centers, and actually New Brunswick just won a case against a data center opening up in New Brunswick. The activists have been doing the work and got a data center from coming up. And data centers have to not only they poison. They put a ton of chemical waste into our environment, and also raises our prices for our electricity, which is why we've seen a massive jump in terms of our electric costs. And so I am somebody who is anti-AI because everything that I talk about, humanity, life, nature, connectedness, AI destroys and kills. And so for me, I've used it in the past, but every time I did it, I was like, oh girl, why I gonna do that? I'll just kill the tree, you know? So for me, I avoid it, and it's something that I don't use, and I am somebody who is, it feels weird to say, I feel like I'm in like some kind of weird dystopian sci-fi, but like I'm firmly human. You know, I'm pro-human. And if I'm stuck, I go to my friends. If I'm stuck or I don't know the answer to something, I go to family. I just firmly believe in our ability to solve our problems, and I think that AI is, sorry you got me on a soapbox, but I feel like AI is a perfect encapsulation of a quote that I stand by, which is, humans have evolved technologically, but spiritually and emotionally we haven't grown with our tech. And so we don't have the capacity to cope and deal with something that's this complex and this potentially harmful. And so I don't use it, and I think that it is the perfect example of capitalism gone awry. It's just taking without actually investing in the people that need it. So that's my very long spiel.
I basically feel the same way. I feel like I separate myself from AI by just being human, like just by, especially when it comes to art, because I feel like AI is able to compose an image, but like I was saying, it's one thing to see, but it's another thing to understand. So you can just put a whole bunch of stuff together that you're prompted to do, but if you're not understanding the composition or why these things are going together, then it's not going to speak. It's not going to speak the same way as somebody organically going through the motions of comprising something and putting it together. And I guess I can understand like AI having its place, but it's a tool at the end of the day. So when it comes to making art, it's like, I guess when you think of like a utopia or something, it's like, all right, we might have robots like doing everything else for us, like doing hard labor, so we can focus on things that enrich our spirit. Art is one of those things. So if you have AI making art, then what's left for us to do? You know, you have AI that's answering your questions and doing everything for you, then what are you using your brain for? You know? And I feel like a lot of people, it's kind of like a lullaby, like it kind of puts them to sleep, like you don't gotta think about anything, really. Everything is already there. You got TikTok, you got Instagram, you got AI. You really don't have to use your brain like that. Really, if you don't want to, you don't have to, you know? So I feel like AI is just kind of like it's like a signal of something larger that's happening within society, to where a lot of people are complicit and a lot of people are just okay with just, I won't even say living, because I feel like a lot of what we do is spent like, I feel like a lot of what we do, like our time is spent doing things that we feel like we have to do. So when it comes to AI, that's kind of like, that's the vice, you know what I'm saying? When it comes to Instagram, that's the vice, you know? Like, it's kind of a way to shut our minds off and just kind of rule ourselves, you know, in a way. And to me, that's dangerous. It's dangerous just because I feel like what has made humanity such a powerful force is the fact that we have the ability to think for ourselves. We have the ability to be conscious. And I feel like with AI, our consciousness is being threatened. You know, it's trying to replace that. It's artificial intelligence. You know, we just made a whole another form of conscious through technology, and it's in our hands, it's in our pockets. So we no longer have to think in the same way that we used to. And I feel like even when it comes down to like crisis that we're experiencing now, like people might feel some kind of way about something, but I feel like their first instinct is to go on the phone about it. You know, if something is happening and you disagree with it, you're probably gonna post about it before you go and do something about it in real life. So I feel like technology is really replacing our experience. So I feel like when it comes to AI, the most you can do to separate yourself from it, and technology in general, is really just be you. You know, not everything needs to be up on a screen. Not everybody needs to see everything. You know, so just to be able to walk within your own life and be able to experience and think for yourself, that's the most you can do.
Now, how did you, because you're a master of shading and shadowing and all of that. I probably need to be talking to your mother because she watched you. How did you get there? Because you're demonstrating great knowledge. So you had to acquire it in some way. Were you a habitual sketchbook little boy that never got away from that sketchbook?
Yeah, I would say that. I feel like what really got me into drawing when I was younger was coloring books. So my cousin used to have a whole bunch of like SpongeBob coloring books, and she would get mad at me if I would color outside the lines. So I feel like always going over to her house when I was younger, just always spending time, like that was basically my sister. But she kind of got into my head about like being technical with things. So from a young age, that kind of became like,
SpongeBob coloring books.
yeah, but that
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like that was also something that was rewarding, because when I did color some in that looked good, she would tell me like, "Oh, you did a good job that time." So that kind of just stuck with me. So then I went from just coloring in her books, I got my own books, then I would color in those books so often that I started to trace the pages. And then from tracing the pages, I just went to drawing it from looking at it. So I feel like making that jump from coloring books into drawing, just from looking at it into being like, okay, I can make my own pages now. And then from there, it went into like, I guess trying to imitate whatever art that I thought was good or whatever art that I found appealing. So I would say maybe around like middle school, that's when I started to draw like, there was this magazine called Game Informer, which just had a bunch of like video games. And I would try to draw the covers every single month. Whenever we got one in the mail, I would try to draw the covers, and I would, if I didn't like it, I would draw it again until I liked it. So I feel like even when it comes to like me doing studies, I feel like it's just the process of trying to make it to where I can look at it and be proud of it. So I feel like that's really what's gotten me so far when it comes to like my technical ability. It's just the fact that I kind of obsess over it. Like I'll sit and I'll redraw something, I'll redraw something, I'll redraw something until I get it right. And
How many? Sorry.
What happened?
I was about to ask you, how many pencils do you have?
Just one, but I use a mechanical pencil.
Oh.
Wow.
You use a mechanical pencil.
And
I know.
are you using, like this big one over here? Did you use one of those graphite sticks to do that shading? Because a mechanical pencil will make
No.
it great.
No, it was a mechanical pencil.
That's crazy.
Everything that I draw, is with a mechanical pencil.
When you said on Bristol board, right, and you just build it up and up and up. Yeah, it's freaking me out.
It's insane.
Like $200 like pencil set or like charcoal that you like refine, you know what I mean? So, like,
Crazy.
Anybody who
Buffalo
wants one, I'm
crazy.
playing until I can get that dark. I bought Bristol.
Yeah, I feel like that's another part of my process is always just trying to keep it simple. Like, I feel like the main reason why I stick with one pencil is just because, like, I don't need to worry about, like, this is 2 ways I can only go, so, like, I don't know, I feel like it just overcomplicates. If I want to make it dark, it's just going to be dark.
I sense it.
do you have a fancy mechanical pencil or is it just
It's graph gear. It's graph gear, and then you have
or do you have like an emotional tie to that specific pencil?
No. I lose them sometimes, and I just get another one.
Crazy.
I feel like it's all, like, you can do anything, you know?
It gives you hope though, because it's like regardless of anything.
Man, I feel like it's just because I feel like a lot of us, we may think that, like, you need certain things to be able to accomplish whatever, but you can make something happen out of anything, you know? But I feel like for me, it just comes down to keeping it simple. Like, I don't want to have to go through the entire process of sharpening pencils, and I feel like it just takes away because I just want to do it, you know? So that's why I just go with mechanical pencils.
You better work.
But also I have a question, because you said you don't think about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But in these studies you have like the painting done, so it's kind of like you already know what it's going to turn out like, right? So it's not like you're just
Well, not all the time.
figuring it out as you go, or is it just with these specific?
I feel like with that, that's like I said, it's kind of like blurry. So when I sketch something out, like with the drawing that has the 2 faces, the sketch is over there, and it had like the land in it, and I was like writing different things, different ideas on it. And then once I started to draw it out, I realized I didn't like that. So then I just, I put it away for some time, and then I came back to it like almost like a year later. But like when I was looking at it, I looked at it with fresh eyes, and then that's when I could really, I guess, put together what I wanted to say. Because
You once didn't like that?
huh?
You once didn't like that? You once did not like that one?
No.
Wow.
And like that's a part of my process. Like that one right there, I redrew the one with the face with the 3 eyes. I redrew that entire thing. So it was done, and I thought it was done. And then one day I just looked at it, and I just thought, like, now I have the skills to really, whatever I was trying to do back then, I have the skills now to really bring to fruition whatever I was thinking. But this is like kind of what I'm saying when it's like it's blurry, you know? It's blurry, and then I have to realize it, you know? So even though I might draw it out one day, I might look back on it in 3 years and be like, nah, like that's not me fully realizing what I wanted to do. That was me realizing it to the fullest, like to the best of my capabilities. But at the same time, my capabilities might have been limiting to my vision. So
You said that was a thought that you had.
Mm-hmm.
What was the thought? The 3 eyes.
Also, she does have a question too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, thank you. And I'm not up because of that. I don't sit right.
No, you're right.
So the right kind of envy was perfect. I feel that. From both of you, I'm curious about your relationship to galleries and looking at other artists. And
Honestly, I feel like this is a relatively new experience for me, and this is something that I'm really dedicated to doing, is engaging myself with other artists more. And I feel like I'm somebody who's kind of created in isolation, and I've looked at other artists online who I really appreciated, but this experience of being in community with you and, you know, engaging with your work critically and seeing it in person and really having to be in a relationship with it in the moment is totally different. And the gallery space, and again, I'm so grateful to Artworks and to Addison for saying yes, because this has opened up my experience, my worldview, and has really forced me to be like, oh wow, there's like an incredible amount of value in being in community and in conversation with other artists that I think you can only get in a gallery space like this.
And did you grow up going? Like, is it something you look to certain artists?
So me and my family, we ended up going a lot to museums. Like, we love the Met in New York, and as a history buff and as an art person, like, that has always been a haven for me. And I think that's what got me going in terms of connecting with the arts, was through history and through that lens. But going to specific art galleries was not something that I spent a lot of time doing. But now I'm like, man, I've been shooting myself in the foot. Like, this is dope. So this is, having this experience has been like, okay, I need to be spending a lot more time in conversation with other artists in order to grow my own practice. Because knowing that you did all this with mechanical pencils, I'm like, if I ever get lazy, you know, you may want to step my game up. Like, this is crazy. So yeah, this is a totally healing and totally world building kind of experience to do.
I'm sorry. I just wanted you to answer the same.
I feel like in relation to other artists, I find myself wanting to go to museums more often now, just because it's one thing to see like a picture, like a painting on your phone, but when you actually go to a museum and you can look at the texture and you can look at like the individual strokes of something, it makes me, I don't know, I guess it kind of makes me realize that what I'm doing isn't so unique. You know, this is a human practice. This is something that we've been doing for a long time. So to see other people and what they were able to create, it's just something that inspires me. So I like to go to museums and see like different, I guess just other artists in their element, because it's inspiring to see that, as isolating as creating may be, because I find myself just by myself the majority of the time when I'm making stuff, that it's not a unique experience to me, you know? The same way how I might get in my head about certain things, if I don't like something, other artists probably feel the same way. Because like a lot of the artists that I look up to, like Michelangelo or like Caravaggio, I still hold them 1,000 times above myself. I feel like that's a level that I'll never get to. And to have people look at my stuff and feel the same way about it, it just reminds me that we're all on our own journeys, you know? Because I might think something of myself, you might think something entirely different. And I know like when I was growing up, what really, I guess, pushed me in the direction that I'm going is looking towards other artists and wanting to be like them. So now that like I'm maturing and I'm growing as an individual, I never want to lose that. I guess that evolution, because it forces me to evolve. I'm looking at something like if I go to a cathedral or something like in Rome or something, and they have like all those grand like statues, I might look at that and be like, damn, like nah, shit, you know? Respectfully, like, but I feel like it's that kind of angst that keeps me going, and it makes me, it keeps that drive going. Like, I want to be able to look at something and be like, I need to get like that. So that's why I like to go to museums, because there's certain pieces that may not even be advertised, and may not like even be shown like that until you actually get there and you see it. And it's like, wow, I wish I made that, you know? So I like to keep myself within like having some angst, so I can continue to force myself to get better and to evolve. Yeah.
I just, seeing your work up and seeing how, you know, you're talking about how it evolved, I'm just wondering, did you each have a sense now of what comes next? Like, has seeing your work together changed what you think you want to do next?
I feel like this piece, like that I have in mind now, is definitely, I guess when I look at these, they're kind of like pages to a book. So now I'm thinking about what's happening on the next page. And I feel like what I want to put on the next page is kind of like a culmination of everything. The same way how I said that's like the start, I really want to hone in on what I was trying to say there and really like bring as much to it as I can, because I've definitely learned a lot more than I knew when I made that. So I feel like just to continue to build on what's already created in a way, and I feel like that's what I continue to do. It's just I guess a build up on what I'm already laying down, because I feel like I want to be able to look back at my work and have everything be cohesive. You know, like when you read a book and you go from page to page, everything goes together, you know? So that's kind of how I want my art to read. And I guess when it comes down to seeing everything in this room, it's kind of just like, all right, like I know what needs to be done now, so.
You said that was the first piece that brought everything together. So, and you also said that, like, all right, once you're done with it, you put it up. So does that mean you worked on that one before you touched any of them, or were you working on some? Right. How long did it take you to do that?
So initially, there's actually like 3 versions to that. The first version I made, I started when I was 18, and I just left it. Like, I was drawing it on the floor, and I just left it rolled out on the floor, and I left. I forgot where I went, but I came back and my dog got to it and just ripped it up. She ripped crazy. Yeah. And I had probably spent like a month and a half on it. So I guess to go through that, mind you, this is my first time ever working on like a large scale piece. So to spend a month and a half on something and then you come back and it's just ripped up, I didn't know how to take that. But then at the same time, I was like, there's nothing else I can do besides make another one. Yeah. And then that's when I made the first version of that. And then, like I said, like part of my creative process is I might make something, and then a year from now, 2 years from now, I might look at it and be like, okay, well, now I have the skills to really bring to fruition what I thought about before. So I look back at that like maybe like 2 years after I thought it was done, and then I redrew the entire thing. And I'm sorry, what was your question? Because
essentially, how long did it take you to finish that?
But yeah, so I guess from start to finish, from the initial drawing to when it was done, it was like 3 years. Yeah.
And then, you're done with that, you roll that up, and then you go to one of these.
I went to the one next to it with the red border that has like the angels.
So all of them are in chronological order?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I went to that one next, and that one took me like 3 or 4 months to do. But the majority of those 3 months was spent in like the bottom corners of it. So like the cities.
And that's you getting it together, unblurring the blur.
Yeah. And I wish when I was putting that up, I wish I still had the original sketch that I made, because it was like really tiny. Like it was like this big. And all it had was just like a square and a circle, and then like 2 little, I don't know how to describe it, but it was literally just lines. It was just lines. And then from those lines came that piece. But like I knew what those lines were. I just didn't know how I was gonna go about it. Yeah. But I just had the vision for it. So, and then from that piece, I made the one with the 3 eyes. That was the next one. And then I made the one with the two faces that are merging next, and then I made those two. So the woman and then the man. And then that's the last ones I got to. Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you all so much. I'm curious to know, FUGAZI was sharing about like the starting and stopping of pieces. As an artist, I feel that. So for both of you really, the question is, how do you know when your piece is done? When you like feel like, okay, like this is the end of this journey with this piece? And then the second is, how do you know when, for your work, in your practice, the difference between when it's done and when you should still like do that second version and like, how do you struggle and navigate that?
To me, it's all a part of the process. So, like I said, like, I might go back on something and I might think it's done, but I feel like my artwork is allowed to evolve with me because I'm the artist. So if I go and I make something and I look back on it and I'm like, nah, like, I don't really like that anymore, then what's stopping me from changing it? All because in my head I might have said it's done. It's not done until I say it's done. So I can keep on going back and keep going over and keep doing it until I'm happy with the final product. And I think I was having a conversation with her earlier about my creative process, and we were talking about like artist block. And I feel like there is no such thing as artist block. It's just not being inspired. And if you view being inspired as a part of the process, then why isn't being not inspired a part of the process?
Say that one more time.
I feel like if you can view being inspired as a part of the process, then why can't you view not being inspired as a part of the process? Because you can't force inspiration. Inspiration comes when it comes, you know? And sometimes you have to live life. You have to not necessarily seek it out, but you just have to live. You have to live until something speaks to you and you get the urge to create. And I feel like I kind of sit in that. Like, there might be spaces in between my drawings where I might not draw anything for like 3 months. I don't look at myself as like, oh, I'm not being like productive. No, like I'm just, it hasn't come to me. I don't have nothing to draw, you know, and that's just what it is. And
you know, that whole notion of how long does something take, as you said, when those pauses occur, it's still being created in your mind. So then once you've kind of formulated your next move, it's like making that invisible visible. Then you go back to it. I mean, something can hang around for a long time and you just keep looking at it out the side of your eye, and then one day you say, oh, you want me to come back and message you, right? And then you go there, and then, you know, just let you know when it's done. You know, it says, leave me alone. I'm done. You know, so it's a continuous mental process, and I think many people don't understand that about artists, that a lot of it takes place in the back of your head. You know, it's back there, and you're looking at it, thinking about a concept that you just got to figure out how to make this thing visible. That's in here.
Rashad, what about you? Because I know that, like you mentioned earlier, that with like obviously painting or doing something not digitally, you can't be like delete or back. So, what is that like for you with this medium?
So it's interesting because my process is like almost the complete opposite of Fugazi. So ideas will come to me fully formed, like pretty much in my head, and I'll be like, okay, now how do I translate that onto the page? So for me, it's less like for these paintings, I already knew what I wanted to do, but like you said, Miss Sabri, like there was so much. Like I think the actual painting starts up here. Like I'm formulating, I'm thinking through, I'm processing what it is that I want to do, and it takes me time to actually paint it fully in my head. But once I've got it, I'm like, okay, bet, and I just put it on the page. And I think talking to my partner now, like he can't think visually in that way, and it blows my mind. I'm like, how do you just not have pictures in your head all the time? Right. But he's a scientist, so he thinks in bursts of thought that he eventually stitches together. Whereas for me, I think completely visually. Everything I see is a painting or a noise, and when it comes out, that it's been sitting in there for a while. So my process is very much, I do so much of the painting up here, and then the painting is just telling my hand to do it. So I think. Yeah, I think sometimes there's things that I discover as far as composition that I'm like, oh wait, actually it would look better this way, but so much of it is already done in my head, and then I just do it.
Love that. So I got a quick question. You're both in professional roles outside of just being artists. Although art is involved in your professional careers, you being an author, illustrator, educator, and FUGAZI being a tattoo artist. Does those professional careers influence your art, or does your art influence your professional careers?
Ooh. I feel like my art kind of influences my tattooing. And it's kind of weird because when I first started tattooing, I would want to keep it separate because I didn't want my job to trickle into like coming home with me and everything, just because it's like tattooing is an art form. I didn't want to like burn out from being at work and then come home and still feeling like I'm working. So like originally, I tried to keep them separate. So whatever was happening at work, I would make my designs at work. And then as soon as I went home, I would draw and I would do whatever I wanted to do. But I feel like as time went on, I realized that it's still an extension of my artistry. So if I'm given the ability to have creative freedom with a tattoo, then I'll make something that I would otherwise put on paper. Like I treat my tattoos with the same like attention to detail and the same care that I would for any of the drawings that I had.
I really appreciate working with the littles because they remind me that art is supposed to be fun. And they remind me to have a sense of freedom. Like I actually just had the idea yesterday because I was working with he was in pre-K, and I asked them to draw their own versions of superheroes. And I took a picture of it because I wanted to recreate it. It was just so imaginative, and I was like, wait, this is incredible. Like, there's nothing in his brain saying like it has to look like a certain thing, and there's a freedom and a sense of surrender that I'm trying to work through now as an adult, and it's so interesting because like working with these various ages, I can see where they lose the sense of freedom and they start to gain a sense of restriction, and they lose that confidence and they lose the ability to just be like, this is what I want to do, and then it becomes more, did I do it right? And I find so much of my art practice in that stage, and I'm like, I never got past the, the middle school stage where you just doubt everything. And so I'm trying to now return back to elementary pre-K where they're just having fun and they're expressing. And, I think I'm in constant conversation with those pieces and am trying to find that again in my work practice, and, having the freedom to, get up and do these paintings where I was just flicking paint was so freeing and was so energizing. I was like, oh wait, this is lit. Like I'm having a great time just having fun. And I think so much of my relationship with those kids is taking on their sense of freedom and their creativity.